Okay, last Thursday, we already did the method builder. Okay. We create a method which is public static void translate, and we call the translate method so we have one method translate this one. So this translate is to do the same thing that we already did. This is not a static. So the static will have different meaning because in this case, I don't have any main method, so I cannot use the static here because the static is mainly used when you have the main method, and especially this is the public static void main. So you will run or you need to execute this method. But if you have another class, let's say this is point, so you can create your method, and this method is not a static because it is based on the instance. What is the instance? This is one instance, or this is one object. And then we have another object which is P2. So this is object P1, and then this is object P2. We can create another object, object P3. We can create object P4. So every object can deal with the method translate. So that's why the method is not static. For this one, we have a main. There is a main method, and the main method is a static. The main method will be only one. You cannot have many main methods because your program will have at least execute one main method. So we already have the idea to make the static solution, and we create this instance method. Okay. So the instance method is the same with the static, but we do not use the static keyword. Okay, now. So the static keyword is not necessary in the object. In this case, there is no static here to describe the method because it is only for the instance. We call it, this is instance method. Okay. The syntax is the same, only it is without the static. So we can define the public type and name. So what is the data type and what is the name of the method? And then you can include the parameters. You can have one parameters, you can have multi parameters, you can use array for the parameters, and etc. If you have the point objects without method, you can see that this is the way to design it. We first make the object P1. Okay. Okay. So this is object P1, and then I will put the value for x equals to 7 and the value for y equals to 2. So I put the dot after the object. So we have p1 dot x. It means the variable x in the object p1 will be 7, and the variable y in the object p1 will be 2. And then we have the p2, which is the object, a new object, and then we have another x and we have another y, and the value is 4 and the value is 3 for y. So we can have like this one, x equals 7, y equals to 2, and here x equals to 4 and y equals to 3. This is for p2, this is for p1. Now, I want to translate p1 dot translate 2, 3. What does it mean? If I already have this translate, the first parameter is dx and the second parameter is dy. We have x equal to x plus dx, and then we have y plus equal dy. Then what will be the result? If I run this, it means the current x, which is 7, will be added by 2. I have y, which is 2. So if I do this statement, 2 will be added by 3. Now I have another object p2. So p2 dot translate 2, 3. So we have x, which is this one, x plus dx. This will be the dx, and this will be the dy. So x will be added by 2 and y will be added by 3. The implicit parameter. The implicit parameter means the object on which an instance method is called. So I use the p1, this one. This is the object. And the object will do many things with the behavior or the method that you define. In this case, we have 2 and 3 as the parameter. So we call this is the p1 is the implicit parameter. We do not have this in the parameter, but we know that we want to change something in the p1. We want to call p2 and we want to translate to 2, 3. We don't have this parameter, but we know that this is a parameter. But it is not the parameter in this method. We call it, this is the instance. Because this is the instance. Instance method can refer to the object's fields. What is object fields? We say that it executes in the context of a particular object. So if we have the p1, so it can have a lot of other methods. Now the example is only translate, but later we can check maybe the distance, or we can have another method. Translate can refer to the x and y of the object it was called on. Now, I would like to have another kind of point class. So this is the point class with the translate. We have the x plus dx and y plus dy. So each point object contains a method named translate that can translate a point to another point plus dx plus dy from the original point. There can be two kinds of methods. If we have another kind of methods, we call it the instance method take advantage the object state. And we can have the access and modify. Accessor, it means to access. And mutator, it means to modify. The accessor is a method that lets client examine the object state. For example, I want to know what is the distance. What is the distance from a point to 0.0? So I have, for example, 4.7. So I want to know what is the distance from 0.0. So the accessor, we call this is accessor, often have a non-void return type. Non-void. What does it mean? We know that the method can be divided into public void something something, and then can be a public, for example, integer. If it is integer, then we have a return value with integer. If we have public double, name 1, name 2, then it will return a double value. But if it is void, there is no return value. Mutator, we call mutator, it will modify the object state. So the modification, it takes like the translate method, so it will shift the position of a point by a given amount. Whether it is on the accessor or mutator, yeah, you can define by yourself. We can have another kind of methods. For example, I want to know the current location and I want to set a new location. So the set new location, it will change the point location to the parameter x comma y. So if you have the parameter x comma y, the new x comma y, let's say we have a new x comma y, and you put this into the parameter of the method, then it will change the value. So you may want to refactor the point class to use this method. You can also modify the client code to use this method as appropriate. Now we will have a new method. Let me I can create a new method, public void set location. So if I have a new x and I have a new y, then I can set that the new x will be the new x and the y will be the new y. If you see this one, the variable now it is in the blue color. Can you see this one? It is in the blue color. We call this is the global variable. The global variable means every time you do some changes here in every method, it will change the value and it will respective to the object. So you can create another method. We have, or we already have the translate. Okay, this is the translate method, and then I can have another kind of alternative solution for the translate. So if you still remember, we can have the method Okay. As the we can have multiple methods with the same name, and we have also the same parameter, but please be careful with the overlapping. This one and this one is the same. If you see this one, this is the alternative solution for the method translate. You cannot make the same name with the same parameter like this one. You can have, for example, you can change this to double, then it will be fine. Okay. So this solution, you can choose what is the translate method that you want to define. This is what I propose. If you want to use the first one, you can use this one, or if I change this one into the second one, it is the same with if I want to set the new location. What is the new location? The new location will be x plus dx, comma y plus dy. The meaning of this one means I want to change the current x into x plus dx. So this is the same with this one. And I want to change the y location into y plus dy. So it is the same with this one. So those two are the same. Those two methods are the same. And it depends how you can create this method. Now, there is another question. How if I want to make the distance function? The distance function, it computes the distance between a point and another point. So it will be x2 minus x1 plus y2 minus y1, and then we will do the square, and then we will do the square root. If I want to measure the distance from origin, it means the distance between the point and the origin, which is 0.0. Okay. So there will be two methods. The first is a method distance. The first problem, write a method distance. And the second problem is write a method distance from origin. What is a method distance? It will have this formula. And what is the method distance from origin? It will measure the distance with this formula, but x1 will be 0, y1 will be 0, because the origin is 0, 0. So you can modify the client code to use this method. How can you modify the codes? Yeah, I give you this solution. Okay. In the final exam, of course, you need to define your own code. How can you define the code in the Java? So in this case, let me write the code. I think I'm not. Okay, I will do this one later. So I will put more method here. So I have a public double distance. What does it mean by double distance? It will return a double value. It is not a void, but it is a return value. So we call this is the accessor. We want to access only the data, but we don't modify. We will not modify the data. And in this method, there are there is one parameter which is point. What is point? Point is an object. How do I know it is an object? Because it is the same with the class name. So this point, maybe you can see this is integer, or maybe you will see sometimes we use double, or sometimes we use array. But what is this one? This is an object. We have an object from the class point, and we want to use it to measure the distance. And what is the distance measure? We can have the integer dx. I would like to have this formula equals to x minus the other point dot x. So this is the same with the x2 minus x1. Okay. And then I have another point which is dy, with it will be y minus other dot y. Dot represent whether you want to call the method or you want to call the field. So this is the same with the y2 minus y1. After I have the 2, so I need to make it square. So the formula will be y2 minus y1 square plus x2 minus x1, and then square, and then we will make it with root square. So I can do this with just written, or if you confuse, I can make it like double result equals to math.sqrt. It is the square root, and we want to have the dx multiplied by dx, which is power of 2, plus dy multiplied by dy. Okay. So this is the x2 minus x1 power of 2. And at the end, we can return result. Okay. You can use this one, or yeah, if you follow this PowerPoint, it will be just the formula on the return statement. So the return statement will be replaced with this formula. It's also the same. So if you do not want to use this one, you want to change this into this. Okay, it is also fine, because the result will be a double value, and this is a method with a double value. It will return a double value. And I have another method which is public double and distance from origin. What is distance from origin? It will be a distance from 0.0. Then I can just have the return math dot square root x multiplied by x plus y multiplied by y. Why? X multiplied by x and y multiplied by y. Because the formula says that the x2 minus x1 power of 2 plus y2 minus y1, y1 power of 2, and then the square root. If we want to get the value of the origin, it is the 0.0, then it will be x2 minus by 0. x2 minus by 0, it will be the same. x2 and then power of 2. And then y2 minus by 0, so it will be the same. Y power of 2. And we will do the square root. So any distance from 0, it will be its value. Then this is the complete method according to the problem. Then how many classes do we have now? Oh, sorry, how many methods do we have now? We have 4 methods. Okay. And if you want to create the class diagram, then the class diagram will be similar to this one. What is the name of the class? The name is point. The name of the class is point. And I have 2 variable, which is x is integer, y is integer. And then I have 4 methods. I will keep showing the plus here. And then I have method plus there are 4 methods. Set location. And then we have translate. We have distance. And we have distance from origin. And then don't forget, when you create this kind of class diagram, you will include what are the data type. This one integer, and what is the method? This is a point. So you will put this one as a point. And then translate, we have integer. Oh, it's difficult to write here. And then it is also a point. And then the distance is having one parameter, which is point. and the method is double. And the distance from origin is a method without parameter, and it will return double. Okay. So this is the class diagram from our Java class. In your team project, there will be at least one class. So I expect you to create at least one class or maybe two classes. Okay. And if you have your class, then you need to write your class diagram. And this is the class diagram. Okay. Now we are entering the new section, which is about constructors. So what is constructors? When you initialize the object, you will create at least 3 lines. What does it mean? When I have a new P, which is a new object, I will have this line and this line. It is to define that the value of x will be 3 and the value of y will be 8. Okay. So as I mentioned to you, in this is the client program, and this is the main program or to execute the program. I want to create a new point, P3, for example. So I can have a new point, and then I need to define what is the value of x. Okay, the x value of the P3, it will equals to 3, and the value of the y will be 8, for example. Okay. So in this case, if you still remember, we have some kind of data. So the data is yeah, we have the P1 and the P1 x, y, something like this one. The x is 0, starting with 0, and then the y is 2, and then we have P2, and the P2, it start x equals to 4, and y equals to 0, and now we have P3, now we have x equals to 3 and y equals to 8. So something like this one. This is one object. This is one object. This is one object. If I want to have a new object, P4, and I have a new data, let's say the x equals to 5 and then y equals to 6. How can you define it? Then we need to have a new point, which is P4, and we create this point, and then we define the x will be 5 and the y will be 6. Okay, something like this, and so on. So whenever you have a new object and you have a new value of x and a new value of y, you will do like this one. We call it, this is tedious. Tedious is time consuming. Why time consuming? Because whenever we want to define a value, you have 3 lines. So how if I want to create a value and the value will be only like this one? I do not want to put 1, 2, 3 lines, but I want to put all of them in one line. So the two value, which is 3 and 8, it will be the parameter. So 3 will be the first parameter and 8 will be the second parameter. How can we do this one? So we can do this one with various types of objects in Java. We call this is constructor. We call constructor. What is constructor? Constructor is the same with method, almost the same with method, but the method name is the same with the class name. The method name equals to the class name. Here we have the public point, and then we have the initial x as integer and initial y as integer. So whenever I have a new point at the first time, I can define the initial value of x, initial value of y, and I can put this initial value into the x, and I can put the initial value of y into the y. So the program will be shorter. And the translate, yeah, it seems the same. Yeah? If we want to translate the value, we can just put the plus. It means x will be added by dx and y will be added by dy. So we are focusing on this constructor. The constructor means we want to initialize the state of the new object. So here, the constructor means we want to define whether it is a public. Now let's use public. And then the type. The type actually it is the class name. And we can have the parameters. What kind of parameters that you want to put in your class? In our case, because we have the point, okay, and we have two value, which is x and y, then we can have the parameters equals to x and y. It runs when the client uses the new keyword. So if I type point p1 equals to new point, and then what are the parameters? Let's say 3,5. Then it will be run in the first when you want to create a new object. It does not specify a return type. Usually there is no return type for this one. It implicitly returns the new object being created. So the P1 has a value of 3 and 5. If I have another point P2 equals to new point 4,6, then it means the object P2 is 4,6. So P1 is 3 and 5, and then P2 is 4 and 6, like this one. If a class has no constructor, then Java gives it a default constructor with no parameters that set all fields to 0. That's why you can see the first part of our example here. In this point, we have integer x and we have integer y, and nothing to declare here. So the result will be 0. So we will set all things equals to 0. If we use the constructor, means like this one. I use the point and then I create a new object P1. Now I'm creating a new object point with two parameters, 7 and 2. Then 7 will be entered here and 2 will be entered here because we have the constructor. What is the constructor? As I mentioned to you, this is the same with the class name point, and we have two parameters. This initial x refers to this 7 and the initial y refers to this parameter. Now, let's see the client code. This is the version 3. I will update the point main tree. What is the point main tree? If you click here, okay, let me. The new point 5,2. So I would like to declare directly the x and y. I would like to have the new point 4,3. But why this is error? As you can see here, there is no constructor. Okay. There is a recommendation from Eclipse, create constructor. I can create the constructor here. Okay. How to create the constructor? I can just call public. And then what is the class name? The class name is point. So I can create point. And I know there are two parameters, which is x and y. So at this class, I want to create integer initial x and then integer initial y. So I would like to put x equals to the initial x, and then I want to put y equals to the initial y. If you save this one, okay, now the point main tree will have no errors because it is valid with this statement. It is valid with this statement. However, point main will have errors because we still use the original one, which is the point with no parameters. Okay, but we will learn more how to solve those errors. So now we have the point, which is originally we set the value x equal to 5 and 2. We have the P2, we set the value 4 and 3. And then I want to print. Okay, the P1 will have the P1.x and I have the P1.y. I want to print the P2, P2.x and P2.y. Now let's say I want to move P2. So I want to move P2 2, 4. What will be the result? P2. The original is 4, 3. I want to translate to 2, 4. Then the result will be 6, 7. So you can run and you will get this value. Now we have 4 is translated to 2. So it means 4 plus 2 becomes 6. And then 3 is translated by 4. So 3 plus 4, it will be 7. So the new P2 will be 6 and 7. The original P1 is 5, 2 and the original P2 is 4, 3. Okay. Okay, let me stop here. Let's have a break. I'll continue after the break.